Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in our lives when the heart clings to someone who is no longer physically present, yet lives vividly in our mind. The memories echo louder than footsteps, and their absence becomes a strange form of presence. To part with someone mentally, someone who still inhabits our thoughts, is perhaps one of the quietest, yet most difficult farewells. When someone lingers in our thoughts long after they've physically left our lives, it is easy to believe that we are simply missing them, their smile, their voice, their presence. But this perception is, more often than not, an illusion. What we are truly holding on to is not the actual person, but the reflection they stirred within us. In psychological terms, every individual we deeply connect with becomes a kind of mirror, reflecting back aspects of ourselves we may not have fully seen, accepted, or understood. The intensity of missing someone is often less about who they were and more about who we were in their presence. Perhaps they awakened in us a forgotten confidence, a feeling of being desired, or a sense of playfulness we thought we'd lost. Maybe they made us feel seen in a way that touched a part of us long ignored, even by ourselves. And so when they leave, we grieve not only their absence, but the loss of that version of ourselves we discovered through them. This is why some people seem to stay in our minds longer than others, because their departure feels like the theft of a part of our identity. We say, they took a piece of me with them, but in truth, they revealed a piece we had forgotten was ours all along. To heal, we must shift our gaze inward. We must ask ourselves, what was it about this person that made me feel alive, needed, valued? And then, bravely, we must begin to cultivate those qualities within ourselves. If they made you feel adventurous, seek out that spirit on your own. If they gave you safety, ask yourself how you can now create that safety internally. By recognizing that the person was a mirror, not a source, we take back our power. They reflected light we already carried, the love, the beauty, the meaning. They were never theirs to give or take. They were always within us, simply waiting to be seen. So rather than chasing the image of another, we begin the much deeper task of reclaiming what we once projected outward. This is not forgetting, it is remembering in a more honest way. It is recognizing that we were not incomplete when they left. We were simply unaware of how complete we already were. This recognition is not immediate. It unfolds slowly like dawn through fog, but with each step inward, the pull of their memory loosens, not because they meant nothing, but because we finally understood what they truly meant. They were a door, not a destination. And now it is time to walk through. There is a part of ourselves we rarely show the world, the part that carries our insecurities, our rage, our jealousy, our guilt, our wounds. We keep it buried, hidden beneath layers of politeness, productivity, and the performance of being okay. But when someone who once held our heart continues to haunt our thoughts, when their absence feels like a weight pressing on the chest each morning, it is often this hidden part of us, the shadow, that is speaking the loudest. The pain of losing someone, or even simply the pain of their lingering presence in our mind, often activates this shadow. We are taught to escape it quickly, to distract ourselves, to move on. But that strategy only delays the deeper work. What we avoid in the outer world festers in the inner one. The truth is that the shadow does not disappear just because we ignore it. It waits. The memories we replay, the conversations we wish we could redo, the silent questions we carry. Why wasn't I enough? Why did they leave? What could I have done differently? These are all echoes from the shadow. These questions do not come to torment us, though they may feel like torment. They come to reveal the parts of us that have not yet been held with compassion. To embrace the shadow is not to wallow in self-pity or indulge in resentment. It is to become radically honest with ourselves. It is to sit in silence with the ache and let it speak. It is to admit, even just to ourselves, that we are angry or heartbroken or terrified of being alone, not as a weakness, but as a step toward integration. These emotions are not enemies, they are messengers. Every part of us that still hurts from their absence is a part that longs to be seen, not by them, but by us. The abandonment we feel may not even be about them entirely. It may be a repetition of an earlier wound, perhaps from childhood, a time when we needed love and did not receive it. When they left, it reawakened that ancient ache, and now the shadow rises. But there is a profound power in embracing this shadow, because within it lies transformation. When we name the parts of ourselves we have long rejected, we bring them into the light. When we cry without judgment, when we admit we are still not over it, when we confess that we feel lost without them, we take the first step in reclaiming our whole self. We begin to realize that healing is not becoming who we were before they entered our lives. It is becoming someone deeper, someone who now includes the sorrow, the lessons, the wisdom gained through loss. By embracing the shadow, we are no longer just the version of ourselves who loved or was left. We become the one who survived, the one who saw the darkness and chose to stay with it, to understand it, to heal it. So let the tears come. Let the rage shake your bones. Let the silence of their absence teach you what presence means. Do not rush to escape your shadow. Sit with it. Listen, because in the heart of the shadow lies the very key to your freedom. When someone we once loved continues to live in our thoughts long after they've left our lives, it is rarely just the memory of who they truly were that keeps them alive in us. More often, it is the image we created of them, the story we told ourselves about who they were, what they meant, and how our life was supposed to unfold with them. This image is not just memory, it is projection. Projection is a natural part of human psychology. We all do it. We take parts of ourselves, our hopes, our longings, our unmet needs, even our wounds, and unconsciously cast them onto another person. We do not see them clearly, we see through them, like stained glass through which our soul's desires are illuminated. When we fall for someone, what we often fall for is not their reality, but what they represent. We see in them something we feel is missing within ourselves, a sense of worth, purpose, excitement, safety, validation. And so, unknowingly, we hand them the script of a story we want to live. The problem is, when they leave or change or fail to live up to that image, we don't grieve just their absence. We grieve the collapse of the story. The projection still clings to our minds because it was never truly about them in the first place. It was about what we saw in them, what we gave to them emotionally, what we believed they could heal or complete within us. And now, without them, that unresolved longing remains unclaimed. To withdraw the projection is to begin a courageous and often painful process of disillusionment, not in the sense of becoming bitter, but in the truest sense of the word, to be freed from illusion. It means seeing the person for who they actually were, not as the ideal we created. It means accepting their flaws, their limitations, their choices, not with resentment, but with clarity. They were never the savior. They were never the source of our happiness. They were simply another human being, stumbling through their own journey, just as we are. This clarity can be jarring. We may resist it. We may feel angry or ashamed for having projected so much onto them. But this is where compassion must enter, not just for them, but for ourselves. We did the best we could with the awareness we had. We loved with sincerity. We hoped because we needed hope. That is not foolishness. That is being human. And now, as we begin to withdraw the projection, we reclaim the energy we once gave away. We realize that the sense of safety or beauty or magic we saw in them was always a reflection of our own soul. They were a container. The contents were ours. The warmth was ours. The wonder was ours. They were simply the lens through which we saw parts of ourselves more vividly. So when they are gone, the task is not to forget them. It is to take back what we gave away, to embody the very qualities we once outsourced. To become the love we longed for, the comfort we sought, the meaning we craved. This is not an act of letting go as much as it is an act of returning home to yourself. And in that return, the image begins to dissolve. The fantasy fades. What remains is something quieter but more powerful, the truth. And from that truth, we begin to rebuild. Not a version of life with them, but a life deeply rooted in who we truly are. When someone you once loved remains vivid in your thoughts, when their face appears in your dreams, when their voice echoes in your quiet moments, it can feel like you are haunted not by a person, but by a presence. No matter how much time passes or how far life moves forward, they remain, fixed in your inner world, unchanging, unreachable. and so you try to silence the thoughts. You distract yourself, force your mind to move on, attempt to banish their memory like a ghost that refuses to leave. But the truth is, the more you try to push away an inner image, the deeper it roots itself in your unconscious. What we resist within, we empower without. There is a more courageous path. Instead of trying to silence this image, we must speak to it. This may seem strange at first. How can you speak to someone who is no longer present? But remember, what lingers is not the actual person. It is the image of them, the emotional imprint they left behind. And that image is not static. It is alive within you. It holds emotion, memory, longing, unresolved conversation. And more importantly, it holds meaning that is trying to be understood. When we engage in dialogue with this inner image, we shift from being passive victims of memory to active participants in our own healing. You might sit in stillness, close your eyes, and imagine them sitting across from you. Let the silence between you open, then ask, why are you still here? What do you need me to know? What part of me do you represent? Let them speak, not as they were in real life, but as they exist in your psyche. You may be surprised by what emerges. Perhaps they tell you that you are not grieving them. You are grieving the part of yourself that you lost when they left. Perhaps they reveal that their presence lingers not because of love, but because of a truth you never faced while they were still in your life. This process is not fantasy. It is a method of integrating what has been left unfinished within. It is a way to bring closure not from the outer world, which may never offer the apology, the explanation, or the reunion you seek, but from within yourself. It allows the emotional tension that binds you to begin to unravel, thread by thread. In some cases, this inner dialogue will not be peaceful at first. There may be anger, accusation, tears. That is okay. Let it surface. You are not doing this to preserve the connection. You are doing this to understand it. You are giving your unconscious the space to express what it has held in silence for too long. And often, beneath the rage or grief, is something far more tender, a longing to be loved, to be understood, to feel whole again. Over time, as the dialogue continues, you may find the image softening. It becomes less of a haunting and more of a symbol. You begin to see them not as the one who broke your heart, but as the one who revealed where your heart had not yet healed. Their face becomes a guidepost, not a prison. Eventually, you may reach a moment in the inner dialogue where you say goodbye, not with bitterness, but with clarity. You may thank them for what they brought, even if it came through pain. You may bless them, release them, or simply let the image fade like a mist that has taught you what it came to teach. And when you open your eyes again, you may feel lighter, not because they are gone, but because you have finally let yourself speak, listen, and let go. This is not just about getting over someone. It is about returning to your inner authority. It is about honoring the depth of your experience and giving your psyche the respect it deserves. Because in the end, healing does not come from forgetting the past. It comes from understanding the language it speaks and choosing to listen with compassion and courage. There is a turning point in the journey of healing when we realize that our pain is not just about losing someone, it's about the disruption of our sense of self. When someone we loved leaves or drifts away, they take with them not only their presence, but also the version of us that existed in relation to them. Suddenly, we are left not only with absence, but with a question: who am I now without them? And it is in this question that the real work begins, the movement toward individuation. Individuation is the process of becoming who you truly are, separate from the roles you've played, the attachments you've formed, and the identities you've constructed around others. It is a path not of forgetting the other, but of discovering the self that has long been hidden behind the need to be seen, loved, or validated by someone else. When we are enmeshed in love, especially in its most intense and transformative forms, we often lose touch with the quiet, internal thread of our own becoming. Our desires become intertwined with theirs. Our plans, our routines, our very emotional rhythms begin to orbit around the presence of another. This can feel beautiful, even transcendent, but when it ends, we are left with a silence that echoes with lost direction. In this silence, however, lies an opportunity. Pain, when held consciously, becomes a catalyst for transformation. The absence that once wounded you becomes a space where the true self can emerge. Not the self that was loved by another, but the self that is whole even without them. To move toward individuation, you must begin to recenter your life around your own inner compass. This does not mean becoming selfish or detached. It means beginning the process of self-exploration that asks, what do I truly value? What brings me joy, not because it reminds me of them, but because it awakens something inside me? What parts of myself have I neglected, denied, or buried in order to maintain a bond that no longer serves me? This process can feel lonely at first. It may involve shedding not only the memory of the other person, but also the versions of yourself that were attached to them. But this shedding is not loss, it is refinement. You are not being emptied, you are being cleared. Along this path, you may find yourself returning to forgotten passions or discovering new interests. You may begin to notice your own emotional patterns more clearly, the places where you seek approval, where you avoid confrontation, where you give away your power too easily. These insights are not signs of brokenness, they are signals of awakening. Each moment of clarity brings you closer to a self that is not defined by love lost, but by meaning found. Individuation also asks us to hold the tension of opposites within ourselves. We are not just strong or weak, brave or afraid, whole or hurting, we are all of it. Becoming yourself means embracing all that you are, even the contradictions. It means living without needing to be perfect, or healed, or desired by someone else in order to feel real. It means becoming your own source of intimacy, depth, and growth. As this process unfolds, the person who once lived so loudly in your mind begins to quiet, not because you erased them, but because you no longer need them to feel complete. They may remain as a chapter in your story, even a cherished one, but no longer as the defining narrative. The center of your life shifts back to where it always belonged, within you. And so, individuation is not the end of love. It is the maturation of it. It is the movement from dependency to depth, from projection to authenticity, from longing to presence. It is where we stop seeking someone to fill us, and instead begin the sacred task of becoming full on our own. This is the quiet triumph of healing, not in forgetting who they were, but in remembering who you are. And as you walk forward, not away from the pain but through it, you do not return to who you were before them. You arrive at someone far more profound, the self that was waiting for you all along.